everybody. We wanted to give you a little bonus feature this week on The Beats, having an amazing podcast with Brendan Moorhead at Eat for Earth. And if you are not familiar with that event, please do check out his event and share it if you feel so complied to. It's an amazing event where he really educates us about our earth and eating properly, not only for our bodies, but for the earth and how to accomplish that. So I asked my amazing husband to talk about nutrition and diet, because this is one of the things that many years ago, he and I started to talk about, and it began an intense conversation over 25 years. So here's a little summary of it in about 15, 20 minutes, our take on diet and nutrition. Enjoy it. Welcome back to The Beats with Kelly Kennedy. And this week I have, once again, my favorite host, or my favorite guest, my husband, Ian. And what we're going to talk about is a subject that I've had a little resistance to. When I met him, I wanted to know what the perfect diet was, because, you know, he'd help me out of pain. And then I was like, okay, we started working on my allergies. And he was like, you know, you got to get off the cow dairy and you got to do this, you got to do that. I was like, okay, so what should I eat? And then he gave me one of his other frustrating answers for me at the time. You know, energy was the first one that frustrated me. The next one was, there's no perfect diet. And I was like, what? No. I want to know the perfect diets. And so I asked him today if we could talk about nutrition a little bit. And the other thing I would like to say is that the one thing that I noticed when I started working with Ian is that I'd be like, you know, it's been like 7 hours since we left the house and you haven't even so much scratched food and you're not interested in food. He's like, yeah, I'm eating air. I was like, what the heck's that mean? And in general, I was much more of a regimented eater, much more rigid. I was very inflexible in what I was able to like tolerate in my body. Mm-hmm. Now I have a much more broad diet. I'm much more flexible, but all that came from a lot of the information you had. And then throughout the years, people have written books to reinforce what you've always kind of instinctively told me and knew. So how did that start for you, and where did that come from? And what is the
perfect diet?
The perfect ideal diet, if there is one?
So I think if we look at our own anatomy, our anatomy tells us what the perfect diet really is. And so there's 3 primary creatures on the planet. Okay, you have your carnivores, which are meat eaters. That's your cats, your big cats, tigers and leopards, and even right down to a house cat, right? And then you have the vegetable eaters, the herbivores, herbivores. So they primarily eat vegetables.
And
plants, yeah. And then you have omnivores, which kind of dabble in both. Mm-hmm. And so let's take a quick second and look at carnivores. So if you look at a carnivore, the first thing you notice is they've got big fangs, and all of their teeth are pretty sharp, right? And there's a reason for that. The reason is that they want to be able to bite down on a piece of meat, on a prey, and what they do is they gulp that meat down. They don't actually chew. Mm-hmm. Their jaws don't go back and forth.
They pierce the meat.
They pierce the meat, they pull it, and they gulp it down. Mm-hmm. And so the first indication is we really look at the teeth and go, wow, this animal tends to eat nothing but meat, because all the teeth are very sharp and they got big incisors on the top and on the bottom. And we have them too. They're just not real big and they're not real sharp typically. The other thing is that if we look at your carnivores, we find that the digestive tract for a carnivore is only 3 to 4 times the length of its body. So it's a very short digestive tract. And so when the meat goes in, it's not digested in the mouth at all. It goes right into the stomach. And because it's so dense, it stays in for a period of time, even in a short digestive tract. And that meat is broken down and finally expelled. If we look at your vegetable eaters, your not omnivores, your herbivores. If you look at the herbivores, their teeth are flat. They really don't have big incisors. You know, a horse or a cow, right? If you look at their teeth, they're very flat, and their jaws go back and forth.
Right.
And
so people can't see us if you're not watching, but we're making a motion with our hands going back and forth versus chomping up
straight
and down.
Right. And so, you know, if you watch a horse eat grass, he pulls the grass and then he puts it in his mouth and he grinds it.
Masticates it.
Just
chews
it up. And those animals have an enzyme in their mouth, as well as we do, called amylase. And The big cats and carnivores don't have that. They don't digest in the mouth, but the horses and the cattle, they do a lot of grinding and they mix it with a lot of saliva, and then it goes into their stomach. And then the process of digestion continues. The digestive tract for those folks are pretty long. It's somewhere between 5 and 6 times the length of the body. Okay, because digestive matter tends to break down real fast. They're already digesting it in the mouth. And so I need a long digestive tract for that to go through so that I can pull the nutrients out of that vegetable matter and then finally expel it. You want to say something?
No, it's just, so if a carnivore
Yeah.
has a short digestive tract because the meat doesn't need to be broken down as much.
No, it needs to be broken down. It's just that it takes a long time and it'll stay in that digestive tract for a fair amount of time. And so their acids in their stomach are definitely different.
Okay.
They have more acidic digestive juices. And so they'll break that protein and that meat down relatively easily. But it'll still stay in the digestive tract for a period of time.
Okay.
And then you look at,
because the herbivores need the longer transit time through the digestive tract with the enzymatic production throughout it to continue to break that meat
break it down
over the long period, over the long transit time versus just sitting there for a long time like the carnivore.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right. And so then you have the omnivores, which eat both. If we look at our own anatomy, what we find is that we don't have a lot of sharp teeth.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of flat teeth. We definitely should chew our food and mix it with saliva, with the digestive enzymes that are in our saliva.
Mm-hmm.
And the digestive tract for a human being is somewhere between 5 and 6 times the length of the body. So if I'm a 5 foot tall man, my digestive tract will be about 30 feet long, right? Everybody knows that, right? You got a long digestive tract. It's all curled up in there. This does not mean that we shouldn't eat meat.
Right.
I honestly believe that the best diet is the diet of a simian, a great ape. If we look at how monkeys and apes—
A simian being a monkey species.
Monkeys.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A species.
Yeah. Okay. So if we look at monkeys and we look at great apes, what we find is that they primarily eat vegetable matter, but they also, and a lot of people don't realize this, they also dabble in some meat. They'll eat insects. They'll even eat small animals. When I was growing up, I had an experience with a lot of different simians for a very long time, and we found that they would get a lot of vegetable matter. Sometimes we would give them some hard-boiled egg that they would eat, and they would also get, once in a while, a little meatball. Mm-hmm. And the monkeys did very well on that diet.
And fruit as well.
Absolutely fruit.
And organic only. Like this was the 70s, right? Yeah. Or the 60s.
Well, they started in the late 50s and went all the way through.
Treating these, I mean, they were feeding these simians with nothing but organic food back then. It had to be organic.
Yeah, because they're very sensitive to any kind of toxic load.
Right.
So all the vegetables and all the fruit was absolutely organic, and so was the meat. They spent more money on the monkeys' food than they did on our food. So the point being is that if we look at our own system and realize, like Darwin said, you know, we're kind of monkeys that lost our tails. Our digestive tracts are very long. We do very well on vegetables. We do very well on fruits, and people should not be afraid of eating fruits. I don't think people eat enough fruit because of the quote unquote sugar issue. Our bodies can absolutely handle fruit, berries especially, grapes especially. Those types of things are really super good for folks. You can absolutely do well on that. So what is the best diet? I think the best diet is the diet that they feed the simians and the great apes at the Philadelphia Zoo with, which is vegetables, fruits, and every once in a while, a little bit of meat, because you do need that protein. And you can get protein from vegetables, but the issue is that most people cook most of their vegetables And once I cook the vegetable, I'm not going to get the protein that I need from it.
And it's not as dense of nutritionally
Absolutely.
based nutrition. And, you know, I mean, I'm a reluctant carnivore. He's called me that for years. I don't really love meat.
Right.
I don't love eggs, although I've recently found a brand of eggs from a local farmer that I actually crave and love. But I tolerate them, that food source. But I definitely know if I don't eat it for 5 or 6 days, by the 7th day, I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling as good. I need to eat it. And we noticed this with you, like you're in the midst of a 21-day detox right now, and you've lost quite a bit of weight. And, you know, you were not feeling well.
42 days.
40. Oh, it's 42 days?
Yeah, I'm done on the 11th
I thought it was
of
21
March.
days.
No.
Okay.
No.
Whatever.
That's okay.
Anyway.
That's a different process.
Yeah. But the point is that, you know, if we need, it's good to have a variety.
Yeah,
it's good to have a variety. It's not good to be rigid. You know, there's a lot of talk about the carnivore diet and the ketonic diet and the omnivore diet and the ketosis diet and, you know, the keto pescatarian diet and the vegetarian diet and the vegan diet.
I think anything that's extreme,
lot of diet.
I think that anything that's an extreme is an issue for the body over a long period of time. You can do those things for a short period of time.
As a diet,
yeah,
but not as nutrition.
But not as a lifestyle.
Right.
Because I think variety is the spice of life, and that absolutely goes for foods as well. Should we be conscious about what we're eating? Of course, you know, you don't want to eat a lot of processed foods, a lot of stuff out of cans and boxes and things like that. We try and eat as organically as possible. I think generally for the population, especially as you get older, less food is beneficial. We tend to, because of the abundance of our country, we tend to eat way more food than we need to. And that's proof in the fact that about 70% of the population today is considered obese. And obesity is 30 pounds over your ideal weight. So, you know, there's been a trend for a very long time, really since after the Second World War, where we've experienced a huge abundance. We can go to the refrigerator anytime we want and stuff it with anything we want and eat anytime we want. And that's caused a lot of health issues for folks. So again, if we look at our anatomy, if we look at our teeth, if we look at how our jaw functions, it tells us that we should be omnivores, not complete vegetarians. And in regards to eating meat, we should try and eat meat that is farthest away from a human being. So
on the evolutionary track.
So fish is great. You know, if people can do fish, that's fantastic. We shy away from shellfish because they typically clean the ocean. They're kind of a filter. But fish are very good. The smaller the fish, the better. And then you work your way up. The next would be birds, farthest away from us as human beings. And then as we continue to look at animals and their consciousness, their literal consciousness, the higher functioning conscious animals, we should avoid eating them for lots of reasons, not just the dense red meat, but also that you will pick up and you can pick up more of an energetic experience of the consciousness from the animal that can affect the body. So for me, I think the very best diet is an omnivore diet, where it's primarily fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and a little bit of meat.
And less food, I would say, is the other thing.
Absolutely,
we just got this
eat
puppy
way too much.
That we're all in love with. Those that are listening, we have a puppy on our lap right now. She jumped up here when we were halfway through this, but when we first got her, I was feeding her too much. You know, animal science major over here, wanted to make sure she got proper nutrition. And like day 4, she started throwing up because I was feeding her too much. So we had to cut back on her food tremendously. But the thing is she poops like 5 times a day for being fed twice. And I think this is the other thing. Like, people don't think that they're eating too much because, oh, I pooped yesterday once and I ate 3 times and I pooped once. And so stop eating for a few days. And if you keep pooping, that tells you something. Yeah. Right. Sure. Like you have a lot of backup in there. Yeah. And it's good to take a break from food. Like, we do a lot of intermittent fasting. A lot of people do throughout the week, throughout the weekends. Like, I traveled over this last week. So there was like, you know, I waited until 16 hours because by the time I got home off a late flight, I ate at like 9:30 at night. And then I was like, I'm not eating until 2 o'clock in the afternoon the next day because I wanted to give myself that 16-hour window because it was way too late to eat. So it's not following rules too strictly, being aware of how your body works, giving your body variety, giving it spice, not being flexible. Yeah. Like, I know Ben Azadi today, he and I are recording a podcast and we're going to talk about keto flexibility, which is a book he just wrote. Okay. So it's not so rigid, but it's being able to learn how to turn on ketosis to get your body to dump its own fat, and, you know, being able to utilize the own mechanisms within our body. But going back to evolutionarily, like for those who don't know Weston A. Price is a dentist that really looked at all this information and looked at the growth pattern of the jaw when we started introducing processed foods from the indigenous culture and the indigenous food and how they were chewing. And it's the mastication that's so important. And then we go into the airway, you know, with Dr. Rayo and Dr. Jared Caratola, and we talk about breastfeeding and eating and chewing on hard food when we're a child to create the stem cells. So we create the palate. There's a lot to nutrition, what we eat and our airway and following our instinct.
And how your body will morph depending on what you're eating. Because what Weston A. Price found is that the people in New Guinea, when he first photographed them, they had beautiful, fantastic U arches in their upper palate, and their teeth were all very beautiful and straight. And when they were introduced to more of a Western diet, within a generation, all of that absolutely changed. The teeth became crooked, the palates became more arched, and
illness started
and a different type of illness started to manifest for them.
And those that are watching, there's two things behind us in the studio right now, which is our Sound of Soul device, and the other is our dental chart, because that's how important, you know, we understand that every tooth in the mouth is relating to an organ system, but how we chew and how we bite and what we eat, we become a filter. Like we've talked about it before, you know, you are made up of the food you've eaten for the last amount of years, months, or whatever. That's what you're made up of. So you have a little banana in there, you have a little blueberry in there, and so forth. So it's important for us to realize that there is no perfect diet. It's important for us to realize that we have some instincts we need to follow. And
the physical body is made a certain way to eat certain foods. So if we really look at the anatomy, it'll guide you on what you should eat. And ultimately, you know, we're the greatest of the great apes. Yeah. And so, you know, for 50, 60,000 years, the body hasn't changed. And our diets have changed dramatically. And we can see that, you know, the primary killers in our society, in the Western world, are cancer, heart disease number 1, cancer number 2, and diabetes number 3. For me, all 3 of them are lifestyle food-related illnesses. There's no doubt about it. And it doesn't mean that you need to be so strict on a diet that becomes an issue, because that can absolutely become an issue. So the flexibility is good, and feed the body what it needs. And I know there's a lot of emotional aspects to eating, and people find a lot of joy in food, and we should. I think the last thing I would say is, you know, Dr. Emoto talked about how thoughts and words affect water, and that's absolutely a fact. And our food is primarily water. The more food, the more vegetables and fruits we eat, you're getting a ton of water. And so taking a moment and having reverence for the fact that this life form is giving up its life to support this body. And this body is nothing more than the food I've eaten over a period of time and have accumulated that food. It's the food body. Whether
that's a cucumber or a piece of chicken.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Body's going to take it in.
It's giving its life for you to survive.
And if you take a moment and just acknowledge that, you'll actually change the molecular structure of the water that the food is manifested. You take a moment, you know, give some thanks for that, and
pray over it.
Yeah, that's why all cultures really have some aspect of praying over your food. It's also very good if you eat your food with your fingers. I know we tell our kids, oh, don't eat your food with your fingers. The truth is that you should eat your food with your fingers, because again, there's another aspect of understanding what this food is before it gets into the body. Your hands are full of autonomic nervous system fibers. They understand energetically what you're picking up. And so you're already telling the body, this is what I'm taking in to be part of the system. So.
And in general, we probably just all eat too much food.
And absolutely, I think people in general eat too much food, especially after 45 years old. 2 meals a day is fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, right? When I'm little.
Skip a meal now and then. It's not going to kill you.
Yeah. And when I'm little and I'm growing, you know, I may need more nutrition, more dense nutrition. But by the time I'm 40, 45 years old, I want to give a break to my digestive tract. A good way to do that is to actually do a fast. The full moon fast is an easy way to do it. And here comes the full moon. So we're going to do a little fast. It doesn't mean it has to be 24 hours, but I like to go from a dinner on Monday night all the way through to a dinner on Tuesday night.
Yeah.
And that way, psychologically, we know I'm going to eat. And I'm not doing this long extended fast because that can throw folks into what I think of as starvation mode, where the body's going to hold everything. So giving the digestive tract a break where it doesn't have to work real hard once a month it can be really beneficial for folks. Constipation will disappear, and you can get used to it, and the body will feel good. You'll feel energized because of it. Because on the bottom line, cellularly,
very difficult.
Our bodies receive about 90% of our energy through actually breathing air, and you get about 10% of the body through the eating of food.
And solar power.
We need to be in the sun.
We need to get in the sun. We need the ions from the sun. We need the energy from the sun. That's important as well. There's nothing that's alive on the planet that's not solar powered. Right on. Mostly us. So, and our cells communicate through light. So back to his original sentence. We eat too much food. It's energy that heals you. And I eat air. Welcome to Ian Kennedy. My amazing husband. So
we take in some energy for sure from oxygen. That's just a cellular thing.
Yes. So this was a little clip into the idea that there is no perfect diet. Welcome to No Rules here at Not Meds. And we hope that you gathered a lot of information today. If you felt like this really jived for you, please share this with your friends and family. We really appreciate all your time that you give us through our podcast. We both truly love educating. We truly love getting that information out there. And we thank you for your time today. This was a little bonus feature on our podcast about nutrition. And enjoy it. We'll see you next time on The Beats.
Eat like a monkey.